Hey, this is Mark in San Antonio, Texas. I love the Gospel Tangents podcast because it has some of the best and most diverse guests in the field of Mormon studies. They're people whose work I've read and enjoyed and that I would love to sit down and have a chat with. And the podcast lets me have that experience vicariously.
Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. The brand new Church History Library is one of the most state-of-the-art libraries in all of the world. Historian Richard Turley explains how he shepherded the process through construction, and we'll learn more about his behind-the-scenes effort to create this wonderful library that we have here in Salt Lake City. Check out our conversation.
There's so much that we could talk about that you accomplished in the 30 years of your leadership at the Church History Department. But in the limited amount of time, I think we can just talk about one more. And that is the Church History Library, which was your brainchild or your idea for many years before it came to fruition. Can you talk about the creation of the Church History Library?
When I got to the Church History Department in 1986, it was located in the east wing of the church office building, 4 floors. And those 4 floors were filling up very quickly. A lot of the materials that were gathered in there were gathered from various areas around the world. And yet, there was more material coming in. In fact, at one point, we did a little statistical analysis of how much material we had brought in over the previous 5 years, and we concluded that if you laid the material flat, so pieces of paper, not end to end, but flat, on top of each other, the total amount of material we had brought in during the previous 5-year period would have towered above the 28-story church office building. So it very quickly became apparent to us that the facilities we had were inadequate. But even more importantly, the more I looked at the facilities, the more worried I grew. At the time, not now, they've been retrofitted since the Church History Library was opened and the materials were moved out of them. They've been retrofitted to have fire suppression equipment and to be better controlled than they were. But at the time that I was there in the beginning, there was very little by way of fire suppression. We had one highly secure vault that had a halon system in it for fire suppression. But the main storage areas on 4 floors did not have sprinklers, and that made them very susceptible to fire. And what made me worry even more about that was that I was living in West Jordan at the time, and I got a telephone call from some friends saying that the high school seminary was on fire. So I climbed up on my roof and I looked down the street, and sure enough, there was smoke billowing up from it. And I thought, well, that'll go out very quickly because it's almost across the street from the fire station. They'll respond quickly and put it out. But that wasn't the case. Even though there was almost instantaneous response from the fire department, what you had was a large masonry building filled with flammable materials like drapery and carpets and books and so forth. And so it acted like a furnace. All of that material heated up and became so hot that they weren't able to put it out before it was a total loss. I looked at that and I thought about the east wing of the church office building, a masonry structure full of paper representing the treasures of the church. The diaries and correspondence and records of members of the church from the beginning up to that time. And I worried what would happen if there were some type of fire. And then I began to worry about the windows in the east wing. Because that structure had originally been designed to be office space, not storage space, it had windows, something you're not going to normally design into a good storage facilities. And I worried that someone with a rock and a Molotov cocktail could break one of those windows and bring the whole thing down. So fire was a major concern. And so I and my colleagues did a lot of research on fires in libraries, and we were not encouraged by what we read. A second worry we had was earthquake. The Wasatch Front is due for a major earthquake. So we began to talk to engineers about the east wing of the church office building. What we discovered is that there was a high likelihood that the shelves in that wing would topple like dominoes and potentially kill employees if they were in there at the time. Or if they didn't kill employees, they would at least begin to lead to some destruction of material, which would then probably be ultimately destroyed by fire. So we talked to them about tying the shelves into the floor and into the ceiling. They did a little bit of study and they came back to us and said, you can't do that. This wing was not really designed for this much weight. You're kind of at your maximum weight right now. If you drill holes into the floor and into the ceiling, you're going to weaken them and only increase the likelihood of disaster in the event of an earthquake. And we said, well, what if we were to tie them together with some type of steel rods? And they said, well, that won't work either, because then all of your shelves will work like a giant battering ram, and in the event of an earthquake, they'll smash through one of the exterior walls and the whole thing will pancake on you. So there was worry about fire, there was worry about earthquake, and then there was just worry about the environment. This was not a wing that was tightly controlled as far as its environment. We did the best we could under the circumstances, but the mere existence of windows meant that the wings heated up quickly during the day and cooled off during the night. That's not ideal for storage. Also, even though while I was there, we put film on the windows to try to decrease the amount of ultraviolet light damage on the spines and box ends, there was still damage from light. So we took all of that information and we went upline and we proposed the construction of a new library. And it took essentially 11 years to get the approvals and ultimately 4 years to build the new church history library, which is state of the art. It's a wonderful facility, the best facility we've ever had for the historical materials. And it's a great office space for those who work there, as well as a spectacular place for researchers who come to Salt Lake City, in addition to those who will do research online.
I can attest to that. I've enjoyed working there myself, and it is a spectacular facility. And as you mentioned, you've got a spectacular team of people there at the Church History Library. So, Rick, I'm sure the question now on everyone's minds are, you're still young, you've still got a lot of years left ahead of you. What are your plans now that you've retired?
I'm still writing. So I've got a number of books in the works right now. One of them, of course, is the one we mentioned earlier, the one you and I are working on together, which we hope to get to the publisher by the end of the year. In addition to that, I have a number of other projects, including some that are not related to Latter-day Saint church history except tangentially. One of those is a series of books that relates to John Wesley Powell's trips down the Green and Colorado rivers. He made his initial trip in 1869, another one in 71 that got him partway through, and then a third one in 1872. So I'm hoping to write a book on each of those three trips, one on 69, 71, and 72.
Great. What about in your personal life? What are your plans that way?
My wife Shirley and I are hoping to do a lot of traveling. We've got we're expecting our 17th and 18th grandchildren, twins, and there's a grandchild in in Baltimore that we haven't seen yet. So we're hoping to visit grandchildren during that time, and also visit some places where we haven't been before, as well as a few favorites. Shirley likes to fish, so we're hoping to go fishing in Hawaii and Alaska.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Should be. Thank you.
I hope you enjoy your retirement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for your time today. And I also want to thank you for your years of commitment and participation in the Mormon History Association. Your contributions, not only in the church history field at large, but to MHA have been tremendous. And I hope you're going to still continue to be involved with MHA after you retire.
I'm hoping to, yes.
Great. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Barbara Jones Brown and Richard Turley. Barbara and Rick, thanks a lot for sitting down. It was fun to be a fly on the wall for this conversation and to film this wonderful event for the Mormon History Association. So if you guys aren't members of the Mormon History Association and you want to hear some amazing conversations, you need to sign up. So go to MormonHistoryAssociation.org and you can sign up and hear wonderful conversations like this. Thanks again, Barbara and Rick. In our next conversation, I'm excited to introduce Darren Perry. He's a Shoshone tribe member and recent congressional candidate for office here in Utah. We'll talk about the Bear River Massacre and get a little bit more acquainted with Darren.
This book is really came about because of my grandmother. I mean, she was our tribal historian, she was the keeper of our sacred records, but it was always important to her that she shared her culture with people. And I know she wanted to write a book. And she got Parkinson's disease towards the end, and she just ran out of time.
Thanks for listening to Gospel Tangents. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents, and for just $5 a month, you can hear the entire interview without interruptions. Also, we've also got transcripts available like these here that are available on Patreon as well as on our website. So to get those, just for $10 a month, you can subscribe and hit the yellow subscribe button. We've also got paperbacks like these. If you want to get those, You can get those at Amazon.com and just do a search for Gospel Tangents Interview, and you can get the paperback versions. Or we've also got subscriptions on those as well, and if you subscribe on our website, I'll send those to you as soon as they're finished automatically. Don't forget to get our latest updates at facebook.com/gospeltangents. And don't forget to tweet at us at Gospel Tangents. Of course, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. And please give us a 5-star rating for those of you who listen to the audio only. And of course, you should show your support for Gospel Tangents with one of these cool t-shirts like this green one, or light blue, sport gray, royal blue, purple, of course black, beautiful gold, and of course Utah red. I probably left out some colors, but if you want to see more, go to gospeltangents.com/shop and you can get one of these. So once again, thanks for listening. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos. Thanks again.